Washington calls us backwards. They look down on us. Well, Washington can get bent.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, did you hear that? By the way, did you hear that?
I did hear that, and that is from a man that you say is leaving Missouri.
Well, let me do it one more time. Here we go.
Washington calls us backwards. They look down on us. Well, Washington can get bent.
You know, here's the thing that bothers me. When my phone number comes up on Bill Eigel's phone, he, just like, what's his name? Nick Schroyer? I already got his name again.
the mispronounced state senator, yes.
What's his name again?
Nick Schroer.
Schroer, okay.
There's no I in Schroer.
When my phone number comes up on his phone, they never answer. But anybody else, you know, if it were like Scott Fawn, oh my God, Scott Fawn's calling me, they'd crawl over broken glass to answer the phone. But not me. We need to call Bill Eigel again this morning. You think we'd call him again? Because, you know,
I don't think so. And you know, Brad, I think everybody is shocked by the fact that a man that spent decades, literally decades, selling radio advertising, when people see an insurance salesman or a car salesman or a radio salesman phone number pop up, it's amazing they don't rush to answer it, because that guy is always offering value. He's just not trying to sell you something.
See, John, you're making fun of me again, because
I'm not making fun of you. I'm pointing out the fact that, Brad, when you call people, you've spent decades in a successful radio career selling advertising.
No, I don't know
so
about
if
that.
I had a friend that pushed, or an acquaintance, let's say, not a friend, if I had an acquaintance that pushed insurance, hey, John, well, oh, you got Progressive? Well, hey, next time that comes up, think about me. And then I see a stupid number pop up in my phone. I'm not answering it. I don't care if his kid plays baseball with my kid. You're selling me something. You're a salesman. I'm not answering the phone. Gee, I can't imagine Bill Eigel wouldn't want to answer every one of your phone calls, Brad.
Gee, you know, your mom, my mom would have loved you. My mom would have loved you. My mom hated salespeople. Okay, one day, I don't know how long ago this has been. You know, I'm working with my traffic network, and my mom, she's talking about some salesman's bothering me. And I looked at her. I go, Mom, I swear to God, this is a true story. I said, Mom, look at me. And she looks at me, and I go, are you looking at me? And she says, yes, I'm looking at me. I'm looking at you. I go, your son is a salesman. And she gets this weird look on her face. She goes, no, you're not. You're not a salesman. I go, I am a salesman. I sell stuff. I sell advertising on my traffic network. I sell my service to radio stations. I sell my service to MoDOT and IDOT. I am a salesman. And she gets this weird look at me. No, you're not a salesman. My son would never be a salesman.
And you sure are, Brad.
It was one of those classic moments. Okay, that is John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. Man, I got some stuff to talk about this morning. And let me tell you, first off, you know who Kate Winslet is?
Oh, yeah, of course.
She's got a new movie coming out. Do you know about this new movie?
No, I don't. Is it called Am I Sexist?
No, it's a pretty interesting movie. We'll talk about it in the second segment. And she portrays Lee Miller, who was a famous, not necessarily so famous because of the fact that she was a woman, but she turned into a war photographer during World War II and was all over Europe in lots of battles and combat and stuff like that. And it's an interesting story, but the interesting story is she's being interviewed on NPR, and she makes a comment to the guy at NPR that I'm thinking to myself, I don't think he even picked up on what she just said. But anyway, we'll talk about that in segment B, block B, B block. And then also, have you ever heard this, and this is another B block topic, have you ever heard this woman named Wanda, who is a favorite interview on KWMU? You know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Okay, we need to talk about Wanda because once again, I heard her, I think yesterday and even this morning. I actually listened to a little bit of NPR this morning. And here we go once again. I don't know exactly what Wanda does other than stir the pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, without spoiling B Block, Brad, do you mean local KWMU or do you mean national NPR?
Oh, no. She's a local woman because I will tell you.
Interesting. If her name's Wanda, she's got to be over 60.
Well, and she's a black lady, and normally you don't have too many.
But she's not a fish.
She's not a fish. She's not a fish. And once again, I will tell.
Wait a minute. She's the queen of carpet.
No, it's not.
Is she the queen of carpet?
No, it's not. She's not the queen of carpet. Okay, it's pretty interesting because I will give a story of how Wanda hounded a local company, and finally they just said, "Okay, enough," and they just essentially fell into her demands. Okay.
Wow, that's the same story as Brad Hildebrand repeatedly calling Bill Eigel. Eventually, he just fell into your demands, Brad.
Let's call him right now, John.
we got to get through the top three.
Okay. Here is John Combest, and here is, what's your name again?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do, sir?
Now on with the countdown.
He counts them down, and he starts off with,
in third place,
I think her name's Isha. Might be Tasha. Might even be Keisha. Brad, those lyrical stylings were brought to us by 2 Chainz when it came to one of his first big hits. The song was called Boo. And in the song where he references Isha, Tasha, Keisha, he's talking about the relative interchangeability of the black women in his life. He's talking about the fact that he loves black women, but that they're largely interchangeable. As 2 Chainz said, what I really know about a girl who drive a Honda. Why would you invest a lot of emotional energy when these women are just interchangeable? This is 2 Chainz talking, not John Combest. Brad, might even be Keisha, might even be Millicent. As it turns out, as a follow-up to our story yesterday, Brad, about St. Louis public schools, we might swap out Keisha Scarlett, who was the head of St. Louis public schools, with her friend Millicent Borshaid, but not so fast. We might not swap out Keisha for Millicent. In fact, Keisha has appealed the decision, Brad. Now, as we pointed out as a unique feature of the St. Louis public schools, because Keisha is protesting her firing, she's still paid while she's on administrative leave now. So she gets to make the case again to the school board of why she should, in fact, remain. And she gave a pretty heartfelt statement. It's up today. There's a content creator called Lucretia Wembley at St. Louis Public Radio. And Keisha says, I did nothing wrong. My leadership decisions were always made to benefit our students and community. And here's one of the unique quotes that she said, Brad. She talked about how she and her friends uprooted their lives to come to St. Louis. Now, many of us, myself included, often poke fun at the fact that it appears that leaders in St. Louis City think that there's no homegrown talent here, that we have to go recruit from Seattle and other places, maybe Texas, and that we don't hire people here. But as she points out, as Scarlett points out, Keisha Scarlett points out, these folks have uprooted their lives to come here, Brad, and we should probably be a little bit more compassionate about that. So anyway, like 2 Chainz said, I don't know her name. I just call her Boo. And maybe she'll be swapped out with Millicent, or maybe we'll keep Keisha.
Did she really say that all these people she hired from Seattle uprooted their lives?
Yeah. The quote is, both I and the dedicated professionals who uprooted their lives to serve this community have been treated unfairly. Now, remember, she's only making $268,000 a year,
right,
which is a pittance when it comes to, having to deal with St. Louis public schools. Now, her friend Millicent is only making $230,000 a year, so that would be a $38K bump. You could buy a Honda with that, Brad. You could be in a 2 Chainz song for owning a Honda. You could buy a nondescript gray Honda and drive on Hodiamont, go up to Cote Brilliant and see your friends.
Okay, let's say we had a infamous bank robber who was born and raised in Dallas, and he decides that the banks are too tough to rob in Dallas, whatever. And he comes to St. Louis and he starts robbing banks, and then they arrest him. And they put him on trial, and he goes, I uprooted my life to come here and rob banks in St. Louis. You should be nice to me, right? Isn't that sort of a parallel, or am I being a little bit too weird? Is that?
I think you're being a little bit harsh, and let's not forget that before Keisha Scarlett came here, she had a title of her title in Seattle. Well, I don't have it in front of me right now, but she had a lot of really proven DEI accolades in Washington, Brad. And when you're looking for somebody to come in and be a chief executive, you want to make sure that they're able to deal with a diverse workforce, and lead with diversity. So, I mean, I wouldn't mock those credentials, Brad.
I told you Tuesday, and we didn't talk about this enough, maybe a little bit more. Tuesday, when I was, I've still got this. I'm not 100% back again. I've been sick for like a week and a half now, and I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm much better than I was, but last week I was like worthless. So Tuesday I went to the movie Am I Racist? Am I a Racist? The Matt Walsh movie, and I have two people I know that are DEI people. One who, in specific, and I won't give too many specifics because I don't want to give this person away. This is what this person does. She works in an area where she gives DEI training. So after I saw the movie, guess who I called?
You called her?
Yes. I say, hey, there's a movie you need to go see. And she wasn't happy with me, but that's a whole nother story. But John, once again, I'm going to make it so John never sees that movie. John, you need to go see this movie. So that means
I will actually see it, because unlike a lot of your recommendations, this would actually provide some value, and I think it would actually make me laugh.
Are you a Matt Walsh fan?
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. I think there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with him on.
Well,
I think he can be kind of a blue pill guy in some respects. But when it comes to like general conservative ideology, I think he's terrific.
But see, what I think that's interesting about him is he's not like, and I don't mean this in a bad respect, he's not like a Bible thumper kind of guy. We're like, hey, I'm a conservative and you better believe how I believe. He's got a sense of humor, and it's a very dry sense of humor, and that's what this movie is all about. It's very dry sense of humor, and to the point where it's not like he's cramming stuff down your throat. The way he does it, it sort of makes you go, let me think about that for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
The somebody else with a really dry sense of humor, probably my favorite dry sense of humor. Well, that's in story number 2, Brad.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Up a notch to number 2.
Speaking of dry sense of humor, Missouri's best reporter, arguably, I'd make the argument he is, Jason Rosenbaum from St. Louis Public Radio, does really in-depth features on each ballot issue. He does them on the statewide races, and then he also does them on statewide initiatives. And the latest post from his Politically Speaking podcast focuses on Proposition A, which is the Missouri minimum wage increase. And on one side, saying no to the minimum wage increase, is the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. And Jason plans to invite them on and have them on, or at least a spokesman from that campaign on, at some point to talk about their opposition. But yesterday, Brad, he had a woman supporting the minimum wage increase, Proposition A, on, and she happens to be a New York attorney. She's a black gal named Heather McGee, and she wrote the New York Times best-selling book, quote, The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone, and How We Can Prosper Together. So this woman from New York is really happy about the fact that Missourians might raise the Missouri minimum wage, and she talks about all the benefit. And here's her quote, Brad, which I know that you'll be excited about, which is, people should not work all day and come home in poverty. And they should be able to earn sick time to take care of themselves and their loved ones. So I know that you feel strongly about this, Brad. You believe that for every 30 hours people work, they should get at least 60 hours of sick time, right?
No, my thing is that when I've had these discussions with these minimum wage people who want to raise the minimum wage, I always throw out the fact, well, let's raise it to $100. Whoa, that's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous? You want a livable wage?
Yeah.
$100 an hour is very livable. You know what I mean?
And to be clear, so Proposition A, as Rosenbaum reports, would raise the state's minimum wage to $13.75 an hour next year, and gradually move it up to $15 an hour by 2026. Once it reaches $15, the wage will go up based on what's known as the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, starting in 2027. Now, the other kicker is the initiative would require employers to provide 1 hour of sick leave for every 30 hours worked. So for every 30 hours, an employer has to give an hour of sick leave, Brett.
John,
I don't know why we don't make it 30 for 30. It could be like an ESPN special. That would be the campaign. You get 30 hours of sick leave for every 30 hours you work. To your point, Brad, why don't we have that? Why don't we just make it hour for hour?
Why don't we have 10 days vacation for every day you work? That gets to a point where you go like, okay, God, don't get me going on this.
I'm going to get you going on it, Brad.
No, it's to me, and once again, I go back to you're the expert at this kind of stuff. You can poke holes in my argument, but why is it that and I've had discussions with these people, well, we need to raise the minimum wage. I say $100 an hour. Well, okay, explain to me why that's ridiculous. Because they want more money, and just like you said, so they can go home and have self-time or whatever it is, or what was the term you used?
It's self-care. Probably.
Self-care. Okay. So $100 an hour? I'm telling you, if I worked at Steak and Shake when I was in high school, if Steak and Shake paid $100 an hour, I would quit this job right after the show ended at 8 o'clock. I would go to the nearest Steak and Shake, and I'd say, I want to work one 12-hour shift a week. I'll come in at 6. I'll work the breakfast, lunch, and early dinner. I'll work 6 to 6, 1 day a week. I'll come in on Monday, and I'll make $1,000 a week. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm just going to have fun. You know what I mean? I'm just going to
what a life that would be. Right, now, why I do enjoy this type of stuff is, as we've discussed before, the higher you raise the minimum wage, the more you incentivize these companies to move to automation. I love that.
You're exactly right.
I love hearing the stories in California about how you get a minimum wage increase, and then the companies have to lay people off. That's exactly what you get.
The new style McDonald's that you said you've been in, but I don't think you've been in since they've completely revamped it. The one there in Mid Rivers Mall, right there off of 364, in front of the Target and the Deerberg store. Okay, there is no counter anymore. You can't talk to anybody. You walk in the door, and they only have kiosks. There is no place for you to physically look in someone's eyes and place an order. You have to use the kiosk. Why is that? Because of the fact that they've just eliminated 1 or 2 or 3 jobs. The people used to stand up there at the counter and take your order. Those jobs are gone. They don't exist anymore. And once again, that's what you're going to get. And there's going to be, anybody who knows in business, there are things that here at the radio station, there are pieces of equipment that would make my life so much easier, but they're on the expensive side. But there gets to a point when I can see the dollar, the cost to benefit ratio, where I go like, you know what, I'm going to buy that, and it may cost me $5,000 or $10,000, but it may make me $20,000 because of the fact that it frees up my time or somebody else's time. Get what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying.
I do. And so much of that great technology comes from China, which leads nicely to story number 1.
And that one is?
The number 1.
A factoid that I couldn't believe, Brad, but maybe this one won't surprise you because you know more about higher education than I do. Do you know that Chinese student visas, in other words, visas for kids that are coming from China, or I should say young adults coming from China, do you know that we give, as a country, we give student visas to kids whose parents are members and leaders in the Chinese Communist Party, Brad? Did you know that?
John, what else is new?
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this. But real quick, I know we're up against break here. The top story on my website today comes from Fox News. And amazingly, there's no paywall or registration on this one, it seems. But Senator Eric Schmitt and another senator have introduced a number of measures to protect the United States against China. The Schmitt specific one would forbid our federal government from giving student visas to kids who are children of Chinese party officials, Brad, members of the CCP and their relatives from getting student visas. According to Schmitt, here's his line: these more than 100,000 admission slots should go to American students. Now, if this isn't a common piece of legislation, I don't know what is, Brad.
You said a common piece of legislation?
No, a common sense piece of legislation.
Oh, I thought you said just common. Okay, common sense. I mean, do you really believe that, or that's what you're...
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't believe that we're giving student visas to people who are either members of the Chinese Communist Party themselves or their children.
Well, the one that gets me is we still have this deal, which is a very secretive program, where they are literally chartering aircraft and flying airline, full airliner, because they're chartering like these airliners, and they're flying full flights of immigrants over from various countries. There's a you probably know what it is. There's 4 or 5 specific countries, and once again, they're not adhering to the immigration laws or anything like that. They're just bringing these. I'm going like, okay, I don't get this. And there's been stories about this for a long time where they flying them into these, sort of these satellite airports, like sort of like the, what do you call it? The Mid-America airport over there. And the flights come in at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody there. And the plane is filled with immigrants, and off they go. And the NGOs get them. And don't get me going about this.
We're going to get you going. Now, it's not just NGOs, though, Brad, as we pointed out before. This shows the strength of the lobby and the lobbyists for Sanford-Brown. Because they make hella typists. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. They can transcribe like nobody's business. You think Google AI is good? You think Gemini is good? Have one of those little pocket stenographers, You could fit like 20 of them in a room, and they can just take notes like nobody's business.
And I got a good story this morning about OpenAI, which is the parent company for ChatGPT, which is sort of interesting. Okay, once again, for those of you who don't listen to public radio, NGO stands for non-governmental organization, and an NGO can be all sorts of different organizations, but a lot of them are religiously affiliated. A lot of them, and that's what a lot of these NGOs are. They're getting money from the federal government, who are helping to resettle the immigrants. The federal government is not necessarily paying to resettle these immigrants. They're paying churches to resettle these immigrants. John, am I telling the truth on that?
You absolutely are, Brad. I just want to know how we can get our hands on some of that money.
Yes, you and I. You know what? We need to start our own not-for-profit. We need to start our own NGO. That's all there is to it. To hell with working for a profit. We're gonna be not-for-profit like Joy 99 and Educational Media Fund Foundation, whatever the heck, that owns all these Christian radio stations around the country. That if you look at their spreadsheet, their asset value is almost $1 billion with a B. But yet they're not for profit. Okay, we got to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?